have never been done before.
We the people tell the government what to do. It doesn't tell us. We the people are the driver. The government is the car. And we decide where it should go and by what route to do. We the people are free. And I hope we have once again reminded people that man is not free unless government is limited.
Oh, there you go. Forgot to take your picture down. How are you, folks? God, who knew that I used to work in production and playing with television pictures was never really my thing. How are you going? Doing all right today? I'm sorry, I may look a tad disheveled. That is because between yesterday and today, I am disheveled. That'll be probably the easiest way to describe it. I have lifted more steel in the last 2 days. I have been wading through more long grass and corrugated iron and meeting some of our more inspirational natives. Inspirational when it comes to getting exercise, because you either stand very still or you run like buggery when you see some of them. But standing still is generally what I do. I haven't run away from one yet. We've come across, in fact, we found a carpet python that rivaled Skipper Pete's the other day. So that was a bit of fun. Gave him a nice new home. There was another one that we went back to try and save on the side of the road, but by the time we got there, he'd actually done a runner as well. So God love him. He did pretty well. First one in the show tonight. Rachel, happy Wednesday to you too, my darling. I hope you and JFK are doing well, young Jimmy, and looking forward to seeing how life goes on in the near future in Tasmania. Of course, for those of you that aren't aware, Rachel is a hell of a healer. She's been able to send, along with her team, and Tony, who has a team as well, been able to heal me in all sorts of ways from a distance. It's been absolutely mind-blowing, opening whole deal. So can't thank her enough, but she also works with animals really well. Rachel, were you going to send me that picture you were talking about? The one that shows the little orbs and stuff? I'd be very keen to see that. We might be able to share that. And if you have sent it, I don't know, text me or something. I'll go and try and find it. Peter Grace, got your coin from the Perth Mint. Listen to you. Anybody would think you were happy and proud to have a coin, a 1 kilo coin at that, by the sound of it. And the Great Southern Land snakeskin jasper 1 kilo coin. What does that mean? Well, that means that. What a magnificent little presentation box it's in as well. Let's have a closer look. That is, and I'll get the script off there as well so we don't have to worry about that. Snakeskin jasper. That is the red that the Australia is made out of, I'm gathering. But what a truly beautiful coin, mate. Thank you for sending that to us so that we can have a bit of a look. And I know, bought it a premium. Silver currently spot price dropped a bit today. So if you paid today, mate, you probably got it a bit cheaper than you would have yesterday. Yesterday, of course, silver went through $64. Did you happen to notice that? I did. I was out in the bush dodging snakes and bits of steel, and you don't want to know. So missed it dropping, although I think it started out this morning at just above $64. And throughout the day today, it's dropped nearly $1.50, or in fact, it's dropped over $1.50. It's back at $62.47. Now, it may drop a little further yet, and I can tell you, if it happens to drop back to $61 and you've got a few spare dollars, I would be going to go and buy a bit of silver if I had a few spare dollars, especially if it drops back below 61, because when it bounces back up again, it will bounce back very quickly past 64, I believe, and then come 65, 66. I mean, we've seen this cycle happening now for the last few weeks, and in fact, longer than the last few weeks. And if you've been tracking it as closely as Ainsley Bullion do, and you can see it on their graphs that they provide right on their front page, if you want to know minute by minute what the price is, the spot price for gold and silver, it'll show you every 15 seconds. so it updates that quickly. But I would expect you'll see gold is back below 5,500. I think it came very close to 5,600 in the last day or so, but it's just under at the moment at 5,496.64. And as I say, silver is 62.47. Platinum, always worth talking about, just over $2,000 now for an ounce, 2,074.75. That is obviously back down a little bit from what it was. It was well over $2,100 just a couple of days ago. But these are the sort of bounces you expect in the market. So don't sweat it if that's what you're wondering about. The gold-silver index, as always, is pointing down at the moment, which is a good thing. It's gone slightly up from what I saw it at yesterday. It was 86 point something 16, I think it was. And tonight it's 87.98. So while it's risen slightly, it's still on a very good downward trend, and we want it. The closer it gets to parity with gold, the better it's going to be for everybody who's holding a bit of silver. And if you need help holding silver, then by all means feel free to make your own choices. There are people you can go and see all over the country, but Ainsley Bullion have been doing it now in their 51st year. I was going to say 51st, their 51st year, and I've got to say, from my dealings with them, they are truly magnificent people, and so many of you have shared that experience, I think, either through your self-managed super fund or by taking the opportunity to go in and check them out in store in Sydney, Melbourne, and the Gold Coast now, or just buying online through ainsleyBullion.com.au. Their service is absolutely astounding. So I'm very happy to be associated with them. And today, of course, we started delivering some of our Byron Bobs, Jan and Craig, who live just north of Brisbane. Probably the closest to me outside of Adele, who is on the Gold Coast. And Adele, you should get yours. I would have thought you'd have got yours today too, actually. Maybe yours will be there tomorrow. Tony, yours will probably take a couple of days. Should have it by the end of the week, fingers crossed. But, you know, snail post being what it is, we might have a few issues there. Shane, yours will be on the way shortly. Haven't sent yours yet, but it's right here. And I've sent a couple of others down to Mitch and to a few others. So all of yours should be arriving in the very, very near future. Sunflower, yours will be coming as soon as we get some new, or some more, should I say. And I guess they will be kind of new, some of them anyway. New holders made. Now, Vince has been working his clacker off, and I know he's in the chat tonight. So, folks, send him a bit of love in the chat, because Vince, in spite of all outward appearances, has a few problems with his ticker, and he likes to sleep when he likes to sleep, and sometimes he goes to sleep. And that's quite a while. So his printer goes off, does its thing, but these things take a while to print. And of course, we are now looking at another, I think, 9 coming from Vince in the next day or two by the time they're finished up and bucketed off and sent, or maybe he sent them today. And then we have some new ones that I will share with you. I've just got this photo in seconds before coming to air. I haven't cropped the photo to bring them up close at all, so you might have to squint a bit or bring them up on your TV. But these will be the new 1/10 Ainsley Byron Bob holders, which have been printed by not Vince this time, but one of you, Silver Fox. And mate, thank you. They absolutely look spectacular. And that's just in a photo. I can't wait to see what they look like in my hand. Made out of the same silk blue that we're using in the other ones. And Vince's, I'm not talking Vince's down at all, but the difference between Vince's printer and Silver Fox's printer, aside from being, I imagine, a great deal of money, is Silver Fox's will print a couple of colors, whereas Vince's won't. And Vince's had to hand paint. So the first 9 that have been handed out are very, very special because Vince hand painted them. I have two here that I have really messed up when it comes to hand painting. Not good. Got a hand like Steady Eddie. It didn't help at all. However, Vince's really good, but his are hand painted. And then these new ones will be completely 3D printed. So they are spectacular. I'm not sure how many we can convince Silver Fox to make for us. And who knows, we're getting some from Pete from Penaroo's young bloke too, Will, who's got a new printer and a very flash one at that, even if I couldn't actually figure out his test print was a skull. That's more to do with my eyes than his printer, trust me. So I'm looking forward to seeing what comes out of there. So we will have a few more of these coming up, but we're just getting our orders together, and the next lot to go out will be a Sunflower and a couple of others that have. I'm just waiting for the holders, and they're coming. So hopefully yours will arrive sooner rather than later for those folks who have already seen. Chat, tell Carl what is missing Carl's signature. Yeah. If you get the one that doesn't have the signature on the back of it, then I guess that makes it even more special. But I know what number needs to be on there. So if you've got that, and there's a chance, given where I've sent these, I'll be in your area at some stage in the not too distant future. If you've got that and you want me to sign it, great. But might be interesting to see what comes out of that. Might be worth something one day. Might not, but that's what makes these things collectible. Because you have the first run hand-painted Voice of Freedom box with a unique flaw. You are the missing number. Now, I could choose not to have a missing number. I could just write the number I should have put on yours and say, oh, shit, I'm sorry, I didn't put a number on yours. I'll do it next time. But when I do, I'll know what number I'm up to, and I'll number it that. But I'm not going to do that. If you find me, or you write to me, tell me who you are, and we haven't sold 1 million of these things, so it should be pretty easy. One of you has got one that isn't numbered. So it does make it quite unique. Up to you if you want it signed or not. But I do know what number it should be. And I have the next number in line sitting down here. So that's going to a guy named Shane. So, yes, we'll see. V for Vince's version. I like that, Daniel. Vince's version. Pete. Gold leaf letters for a silver pack? Okay. Or are you going to put 1/10 gold coins in there for us to give away, Pete? Geez, you'd want a good garlic crop to do that, wouldn't you, brother? Sorry, I'm being facetious. And I do hope you have a good garlic crop. The smell from the garlic last year, just absolutely. Jason, I don't know what Bosey's in a spot of bother about, because I don't know, I haven't heard, seen, or anything of him for a long time. He made some noises to John Wilson recently. John Wilson was bragging in one of his videos that they went out for dinner, he and Ricardo and Rhiannon, and my immediate thought was, I wonder how many bottles of wine got drunk. But quite seriously, though, did it matter? No. Would Ricardo have turned up? No. Because he's been bitten by the Cossack on at least 2 occasions before. And I believe Ricardo is a smart man. Although you didn't have to be a smart man to see what was going to happen last weekend. And I wasn't going to talk about this again tonight, but there is something that sort of cross-references to it later. So I will. The Freedom Union, and I'm going to say by that John Wilson, is running a narrative at the moment that is misguided, not deliberately, I don't believe. John is just one of these people who'll fight for a member in the union. And right now he's fighting for the Aussie Cossack, who he believes has been besmirched by statements, I believe, that Mick Sims and Mary Jane Liddicoat made after the event in Sydney on Saturday about threats of murder. Now, Simeon and I discussed this when we talked last week. This was one of the reasons, in fact, the main reason that was brought up by Mary Jane as to why she refused to deal with the Aussie Cossack. And John Wilson, she just dismissed out of hand because of his stated plans and his previous examples of hijacking rallies. So the fact that he was backed by the Aussie Cossack didn't help him in any way. If he had have maybe gone to them by himself, then that may have been different. I don't know. I don't want to put words in Mary Jane or Mick's mouth. It wasn't my show, not my party. I just sat back and watched and ate the popcorn. Now, John is pushing a narrative in support of his union member, Simeon, pushing a defamation action and all that sort of stuff against those parties involved. And if they have, in fact, defamed him, then it's his right, everybody's right, to have that tested in court, I guess. There are potentially some extenuating circumstances in that it is a two-way street, and there have been a lot of things said in the lead up to this event by a lot of parties that could be also termed defamatory. So always got to be careful when you throw around those sorts of words and cases, because you want to have your facts right. As I said, Simeon and I discussed this very point, and we went through the timeline. What could it have been? Because the only detail I had about it was it happened 3 years ago. So Simeon was sort of putting things together, and there wasn't really anything So we've gone in his head. He started at 2022, which is federal election, a couple of rallies in Sydney, the last of which he got up and named at that time, unconvicted pedophile. I think he thought, no, he didn't, from memory. He knew that the guy hadn't been convicted. He'd just been charged and was going to go before the courts. But he named him in public on a PA system in a park in Sydney, and a couple of days later was promptly arrested and carted off to jail and did 9 months, I want to say. A little bit more. You may have sent him a postcard. So that was sort of April of 2022. So he couldn't have upset her anytime April 22 until he got out, whenever that was, in 2023. And I think he did the full term. He didn't do 9 months. I think he did close to 12. Got out, and there was nothing to do with Mary Jane then. So how would the two of them have come together? What would have put them in the same sphere of influence? Well, that's pretty obvious. A stage. So, thinking of the rallies that were happening in Sydney in 2022 and going forward, where Mary Jane was also involved, there would probably, and this is me thinking here, and I wasn't fast enough to think of this while we were talking, the Cossack and I, last week, but I've had time to reflect on all of this, obviously, and I believe that if the threat was made, it was made during or prior to a rally being held, a political rally, because the Cossack has been very involved behind the scenes in these rallies in Sydney, but they've always had politicians on them. That's because the politicians are always paying. And if somebody else comes in to set up a stage first and they're not got politicians on them, then that's where it creates a real problem for the likes of the Aussie Cossack. You've got to get the right narrative. You've got to own the stage. You've got to control the microphone, know who's going to speak. And that didn't happen, obviously, in the Sydney event. So what happened in 2022? A federal election. What happened during that federal election? Mary Jane Liddickett ran for the IMOP party, which is now the Heart Party. And she ran, I think, in the last election, as did Cass Smith. Heart Party is run by a wonderful man, man named Michael. He has a wonderful wife whose name is Barbara. You might know her last name better, O'Neill. And they are two of the most beautifully gifted people that we have on our side of, I'll loosely call it the movement. And she has been supporting them for quite some time. I think she's ran a number of campaigns for herself for IMOP in Canberra. Might have been two, and at least one Heart campaign. And she may well run again for them. So that is the time frame, I think. I'm not sure by any stretch of the imagination. I'm trying to help Cossack and John get an understanding of the timeline and where this might have come from. The only time I can think where the two of them would have come into some sort of brief meeting, and it would have been brief. The Cossack would have been running things. Mary Jane would have liked to be running things. She is a very, very good runner of things. And there may have been some conflict there that the Cossack just dismissed because, boys will be boys, talk rough. Now, what he said, if he said anything at all, I have no idea. But I'm just with the time frame, I'm just trying to help people get an idea that something was said and where that could have been said and when. It might not have been that point, but I'm trying to help you. Now, I know that I don't think Mary Jane has any interest in all in trying to beat this up or put more air into it or even react terribly much to what's being said by the Cossack, because John, and a couple of the people that were there last Saturday, supposedly representing the Freedom Union, they stand to lose a lot of face because of the lack of support for them. They are blaming the police for doing horrendous things, John, blocking us, not able to put up a stage, not able to do this, not able to do the other. Now, the police were following their Form 1 rules. It's my understanding that no stages were to be erected by either side inside the park. And whether or not the people who put in the Form 1 for John Wilson, and I believe that's the Aussie Cossack or Aussie Cossacks people, whether they wrote, because it's quite clear in a number of the videos, they didn't write that they were going to bring in tents or barbecues or anything else, a generator, a big stage, a big PA system, all that sort of stuff. So I think the police, I'm saying here, have cottoned on to the fact, because there was a lot of noise about it in the week leading up from the Aussie Cossack, that he was behind the involvement with John Wilson. And the New South Wales Police Force, for whatever reason, have no great love of the Aussie Cossack. In fact, it wasn't, I know, because the Aussie Cossack was talking to the New South Wales Police about the Form 1 that they'd put in. So it was direct information from the Aussie Cossack himself that alerted the New South Wales Police Force to the fact that he was involved. And they don't like him very much. They know what he is capable of doing. They've been very surprised by him before, and they weren't going to let it happen again. So this time round, they thought like a communist unionist, an old pirate, and were ready for him, I believe, from midnight. From the moment the clock ticked midnight, there were police, senior police, in the park or around the park, very close to the park, waiting for a stage or barbecues or something to turn up and just miraculously appear before anybody from the Mary Jane Litigate Mike Sims Unite Australia people came along to deal with their stage. Sneak in ahead of them, pinch the prime spot. That was the prime motivation about the stage. Now, John wants to moan that the police stole the stage. Well, the police didn't steal the stage. There was no permission for the stage to be put where they wanted to put the stage. So the police might have thought, well, we can't leave the scaffolding on the road. We better tell the Sydney Council that we suspect there's going to be a lot of scaffolding dumped on a footpath at, bullshit o'clock. And you might want to have a truck nearby and some workers to pick it all up and take it off to the yard so whoever dropped it can come and pick it up. And I believe that's exactly what happened. It might have taken a couple of hours, but Sydney City Council turned up with a truck, picked it all up, pissed off somewhere with it. And I don't know if John or Cossack or anybody else has paid to get it back yet, because there will be a fee. I have absolutely no doubt. In fact, 2 of the Cossack's trucks, his big billboard trucks that he has running around Sydney that he threatened to put Mary Jane's face all over. He may well have done that by now. I don't know. They might be driving around Sydney with, big red letters on it. I don't know. But those 2 trucks have been given parking fines in Sydney, which are significant, particularly for heavy vehicles or big vehicles. And I want to say they're over $700 fines because they were parked up waiting to go and help erect the stage that was stolen by the council. This might be leading you to understand why John could only say
What
this.
a clustered fuck this is, ladies and gentlemen.
Because it was. And that's because the Sydney police don't like the Aussie Cossack. I don't know that they know much at all about John Wilson or the Freedom Union or why they would have a bent against him particularly, but they've had plenty of reason to not like the Aussie Cossack. One of the reasons that we all liked the Aussie Cossack in the early days was because there was no better bloke to go out and do what he was doing when pulled over by police. He was exceptionally good, very, very funny, hilarious, in fact. And if he had stayed there in that vein, it would have been good. But he upped the game. He got political and he got into the behind the scenes of the politics, the power playing and the money. And with that comes, a bit of a boost to how good you feel about yourself. And sometimes when you feel really good about yourself, you say stupid things when you're yelling down the phone to somebody you've never spoken to before, male or female. And I know from personal experience, there is a lot of yelling that goes on down the phone. Now, I also know, unless that yelling is actually directed at you, then the yelling is more a venting process because he's, staggered that the stupidity that's being exercised, or he would be doing something different or whatever. But if that anger is actually directed at you for whatever reason, then yes, it can be very intimidating if you're, not ready for it, if you're not ready for that kind of thing. So Mary Jane, for whatever reason, or Mick, I don't know who this threat went to, right? I don't know if the threat was against Mary Jane or if the threat was against Michael Smith. I've heard Michael Smith against Mick Sims. I've heard both. I've also heard Mick say it was against Mary Jane, and I'm pretty confident I've heard Mary Jane say it was against Mary Jane. So let's say it was against Mary Jane. Anyway, the place to start thinking about, I believe, is the 2022 election and some IMOP involvement on a stage maybe or an event somewhere in or around that election time. What was said in that time, I do not know, whether there were threats or however you would prove those sorts of things. But anybody who has had dealings with the Cossack will know that he can be very direct and very abrupt. And some people find that very confronting. Other people, for whatever reason, accept it or believe a lot of that rhetoric. And when they throw their all into it, sometimes it doesn't sort of work out the way
What a clustered fuck this is, ladies.
Yep. So John's been caught up in that. He's losing face, but he's only got, he's worked through so many friends in this freedom movement. And I can tell you, having spent hours and hours with John on his boat in my backyard at the time and in cars with him as we drove all over the place, in planes, I can tell you that John's love of Simeon is more based on their shared beliefs of how unions can be used, propaganda, manipulation, and all that sort of, dare I say, communist stuff can be used in battles for people's hearts, minds, and money, particularly. So I hope that helps them calm down a little bit, these threats of, defamation, yada, yada, yada. If they look, they're going to have to prove it. That's the thing. If you make a statement, you have to prove it. You have to prove that it happened. So we shall see how it works. Silver Fox, I don't know whether or not you've heard me sing your praises, but let me sing them just one more time very briefly. Thank you. What a bloody magnificent job you've done there. I haven't even cropped the photo up. I can't imagine how good they're going to look in person. So thank you, mate. Really, really appreciate what you've done. And looking forward to seeing one in my hands. All right. I have a video that I can't play you on this channel. I was sent this video earlier today. In fact, I only got to it minutes before the show. I think I have loaded it into here. In fact, no, I don't think I've loaded it into here, because if I accidentally played it, it would get the channel kicked completely from YouTube. It does show the kill shot of Charlie Kirk. Interestingly, and I don't think I've ever fully explained it, and Vince, I don't think, has ever said. Vince and I have had eyeballs in the house, dude. Well done, congratulations. Love your work. See you soon. Vince and I have had a number of conversations privately, and we've shared screens and watched close-up video of Charlie's death. We have analyzed it frame by frame by frame by frame. And one of the intriguing things for me has always been, and Vince, I hope, remembers that we spoke about this, one of the things that triggered me. People were following the black dot on his shirt and the letter F, which appears to disappear from his shirt. Now, Vince and I both agree the black dot is something that's on the shirt as part of the logo, and the F and the black dot both get folded in wrinkles, but the dot, for whatever reason, appears to be moving across Charlie's chest, and then a hole appears in his neck. The hole that appears in his neck has always bothered me. And if you have access to that video, I would urge you to zoom in on it and see if it bothers you, particularly the way that it appears and the size of it. The hole in his neck is quite a sizable round. The Mauser that supposedly is the weapon that shot him wouldn't have left that sort of entry wound. Also, how do I say this? The fountain that came out of him came in a way that indicates the shot came from behind Charlie. Vince and I have been talking about the ricochet off the body armor that Charlie was wearing. But even then, I said to Vince the other night, even with that theory, we have a bullet that turns more than 45 degrees. It's another JFK bullet. To have hit and gone through the way it supposedly has gone through didn't add up. And the bullet would have passed through and through and gone into people inside of the crowd or whatever. I don't know. I've seen a video that's been sent to me here tonight. I can't play it to you. It is, I may take some stills from it and put it in the show tomorrow night. We might be able to zoom out of a few things. There is no blood in this video, which is the other thing that might be able to get me away from how it is. But we're specifically going to look at about 4 frames. And we're going to look at a gentleman who's standing behind and in the crowd of Charlie, who, after some hand signals, which people are correctly identifying, there's a guy in white standing there, doing baseball wiggles, and there's a guy in a black shirt who is integral to all of this. And once I go through this thing and figure out that we're not looking at something that's been AI generated or played with, I'll tell you more about it. But at this stage, it's blurry, but it's very identifiable that there is a gentleman in a white shirt. You would need to be looking at the angle taken from stage right. As you look at the stage, there is a camera angle that is essentially looking at Charlie while Charlie's facing that way. That's the angle you want. You can see the 2 gentlemen behind him, and then go back into the crowd and look for a fellow with a white shirt. It happens very, very quickly, and you see a bloke pull a pistol up, pull the gun and pull it down. Charlie reacts at exactly the same time. You see the recoil in the gun and the pistol goes down again. But it's a pistol, not a rifle. You don't think it's a gun. All right. Well, it certainly looked at it on my first pass. But interesting sort of view, interesting timing, interesting everything, particularly the guy in the black shirt. So at any rate, there is a lot of weirdness going around about Charlie, and I'm not going to be speaking about Charlie Kirk in any bad way. I think what he was doing was integral to this, to getting younger people into a more awakened state. So if he's still okay, and I pray that he is, then all great. There's a lot of talk about Freemason involvement. He was an Eagle Scout. His hand placement in the coffin, there is a badge on him apparently, but I haven't seen that picture. Look, at the end of the day, does it matter? What has it done to the world? There is a "We Are Charlie" message. I am Charlie. We are Charlie, or Vince will set me straight the right wording. But it's going to be a movement. It's going to be a global movement. Now, is it going to be a global movement for good? I sincerely hope so. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday. We put somebody up like Charlie. It might have been Vince. No, I don't know. But maybe we find somebody like Charlie. We put them up and get to ask the same questions. This is the kind of show that we can put together. And I said, I know who it was, but I won't tell you. It's easy to say, let's get somebody else to do the same thing Charlie has done, but it won't work. It will never be as successful. It will never, either financially, if that was your first goal, but more particularly, it will never be as successful as what Charlie did to touch the youth of America and further around the world. And there's reasons for that we don't need to go into. However, if you find a new twist and a way to present that, then great. But it's also how you present it. One of the things with Charlie was that he was able to present extremely confidently. if he got asked a question in an open mic format like he had at the universities, then he was able to instantly pick that answer. And if he required more information, he was able to identify what information he required, instantly formulate a question instantly, and fire it back at the questioner and say, well, can you tell me this, this, and this? And right, let's have this discussion. The other very powerful thing about Charlie was that he stated on numerous occasions, and he is so very right. I don't know if he's responsible for the quote or somebody else is, but if it's not anybody else's quote, it has to be attributed to Charlie Kirk, that when you stop communicating, you start fighting. When you stop talking, the kinetics begin. And he's 100% right. He had a brilliant ability not to become offended by anything that the leftist morons and tards and trans whatevers had to say to him. And he was able to come back at them with soft, reasoned argument that left them, well, probably not unsurprisingly, confused about who they were and what they were doing there. Some confronted that absolute brick wall of reality versus programming and have conniptions, spin out, go back to their programming, because that's the same thing. When they have a conniption, you are programmed to go back to the beginning and start again. And that's what you see happen with those people that Charlie locks up in those sorts of moments when he's having those Q&As. That is an immense talent. Not everybody has that ability to be that quick thinking, to be able to have not just access to the right words, the right answers, or the right questions at the right time, but to also be able to pull out the depth of knowledge below that to reinforce his points is unparalleled as far as I'm concerned with anybody working on any kind of platform anywhere in the world. He was 100% unique. And I've often wondered how he's lived as long as he has, because, and I guess it's because he's always resisted that sly little wink or sly little smile at the end to say, ha ha, fuck yeah, idiot. He's never done that. And I guess that in some way has protected him up until this moment. But if you go and have a look on the boards, you'll find someone had to die. A world shifting moment. Charlie dies. Australia has a minor, and I'll call it a minor protest, that exposes those that need to be exposed. Tricky just exposed himself. You know what I mean. We'll get to that. And then London, the UK came to London. Well, a very large percentage of them, 3 million people that the BBC reported as 100,000, I think. So they must have had ABC reporters going over there and subbing, because they've been real good at counting numbers here in Australia at the protests, you might remember, at Parliament House. So we had 10,000, not a million. So anyway, they upped it a bit. They said 100,000 protesters. Those helicopter shots are telling. Millions of people rolled out. And the sentiment was strong, really, really strong. Look at what's happening with Tommy in the UK, 100%. Now, I didn't see any Nazis. I didn't see any nationalists, even though the message that Tommy is pushing is a nationalist message in many cases. One of the things I was most surprised to see was the fact that Avi was over there, and he and Rukshan were asking for people to pay for them to get home. Oh, no, Avi had arrived in Israel. So he's left England and now has arrived in Israel. However, he's probably just gone to tell on people, I would say.
Dying is not welcome. England for the English, Britain for the British. Out with the Zion! Out with the Zion!
Seems Harvey's notoriety has preceded him. And there was a lot more of that pushback against Harvey as he roamed through the crowds. Hat off to him. He stuck with it. But now he's headed to Israel and gets off the plane, and he's had a bit of a problem and requires money. I've got to say, he is the only Jewish boy I've ever known who is so open about wanting to take your money and happy to ask for it. He only asks for help funding your airline tickets when he's wherever he needs to be. Ezra Levant funds Rebel News, and they get some pretty good funding. So I'm just wondering, he has a large community that follows him, the Zionist community. They're going to fund him. They fund him very well. Took him one day to get a $10,000 camera and audio rig. So, he does pretty well. Anyway, he's gone off to do whatever he's doing in Israel at the moment, and he left our rallies to ourselves this weekend, and it was great to see that some other media got out and about. Amanda Sheedy helped us out. She's obviously doing some stuff with Pure Media, and Chris Coveries from Sydney was running around the Sydney rally doing some great stuff for his channel, which I pinched. Joel Jamal, who was doing much the same as me, sitting in the studio trying to coordinate it all. He was also pinching a lot of the same footage. What we didn't see was any footage coming out of the other protests in Melbourne, which apparently got a bit feisty, but nobody that I could find was live streaming it. It was very, very suppressed if that was the case. And nobody contacted me to say, here's my stream. So we don't know really what happened down there, but I'm sure there'll be some form of narrative coming our way. Brisbane, of course, we know what a shit fight Brisbane turned into. And there are a lot of people who are very unhappy with Tricky and TPR, the People's Revolution, the group he's been with now, well, since he started all this. If you haven't seen the footage, I'm not going to play any of it. I don't want or need to. Some of the comments are pretty self-explanatory. We left as many others did. Tricky had obviously been paid off, or his ego has gotten the better of him. There were so many first-timers left in disgust. He bagged people for attending the last rally. He seems to care more about the people marching for Gaza than Australia. He said we need immigrants and there's plenty of room for them, and he thinks Islam is a wonderful religion. He lost us. There was that, but there were plenty other ones. So I'm not going to go through them and read them all because there are pages and pages and pages of them. And I've heard through channels that Tricky's not feeling too flash about all this. So I'm not going to pile on him. And I would hope others, can follow my lead. There is no reason to pile on him. What's done is done is done. There's no point in blaming him. He thought, for whatever reasons, he was doing the right thing. I've had a person contact me today that just tried to make excuse after excuse after excuse, particularly surrounding things like sponsorship for the event. It was my understanding that Freedom Financial Solutions was a sponsor of the event because they paid for the stage and the PA. Joel Jamal tipped in a bit of money from Turning Point to pay for the stage and the PA. It's my understanding that between the two of them, and maybe Joel pulled out at the last minute, I don't know. If not, FFS paid for the stage and the PA at the Sydney rally. That's all, because they don't own a stage or a PA. But Tricky told me in the phone conversation that we had last week that he has a stage and a PA. So he doesn't need sponsorship for either one of those. He also has marquees and, gazebos and that kind of thing. So he doesn't need sponsorship for those. So exactly why was he seeking sponsorship would be the question I would ask, and why is it being used as an excuse? now I understand these things cost money to run. Sponsorship money, if you want to get a lot of people to turn up your event, you want to promote it. And as we are finding here, promoting anything on any of the social media channels using, their come and spend money with us mindset. And the reason I can tell you about this is because we have a lottery, okay? I think we've got 711 of 750 tickets sold. It's taken us, I don't know how many weeks, Vince, you can figure that out, but it must be 3 weeks to get through this. $750 up for grabs and an ounce of silver. Now, I understand times are tough, and, we'd like to churn this over once a week if we could, because it's more feed for the donkeys, but understand times are tough, so it is what it is. But if somebody could clean up the last few tickets there, that'd be just absolutely awesome. But I forget now how I got into that. Oh, because we've had the lottery running, we use that to sponsor ourselves, to pay for our server costs, to pay for my $350 a month phone bill, which is to connect everything up and all that other sort of stuff. That's what that goes to help fund, right? I can tell you, Vince and I did the figures on it the other night, that the Byron Bobs are not what we would call a highly profitable that's the understatement. I think they're not costing us not costing us to sell, but that's more because of the generosity of some of you who've thrown in a bit of a donation when you've ordered it more than anything else. So that's not necessarily our fault. We didn't expect the price of silver to do what it did when it did, and we had to pay for them when we did. So it's done. If I'd have paid for them today, it would have been a bit less. But look, it is what it is. Swings and roundabouts, and everybody will be happy the price of them is only going up. I forget now where I started all this, so I'll move on. Or should I go to the chat where Vince reminds me of what I was talking about? Chat finished? I don't know. Yeah, Crunch, there is a reason. Tricky, an ex-copper. I didn't know that. So anyway, Tricky's whole shit show went to pieces. Oh, that's what I was talking about. Maybe he's learned from this. From what I saw, the video that I saw, he lost the entire crowd. There is a narrative being spun that there were black shirts in there were NSN in there, and they were the ones yelling out, no. Yes, there were black shirts in there. Yes, there were NSN in there. And I think they were just as amused as many people, or bemused might be the word, to see the general public abusing Tricky so openly, telling him to get off in various different and very direct terms, telling him to stop pushing what he was pushing because it wasn't what the whole day was about. And then when he started doing what he did to raise a few funds, and I don't begrudge anybody raised a few funds, but the whole agreement with everybody who got to put this rally on was that you didn't do that. And he agreed to that and then blatantly went the other way. In the name of sponsorship, needed money to put stuff on. Oh, that's what I was talking about, ads. So, yeah, we inquired how we can, advertise more broadly on Facebook and put some ads on to try and sell our lottery tickets quicker. And it turned out it was going to cost us more to put one Facebook ad on than the lottery generates in total. Did I say that right? Every cent that the lottery generates, we'd have to add money to get one ad on Facebook. So we require you to help share merch.vof.com, hit the Sanctuary 75 button or 750 button and share for us, because we can't afford that sort of advertising cost, I'm afraid. Not in a pink fit. And so what we need is to enlist your help if we can, to help share that lottery as far and wide as you can, to your family, to your friends, to complete strangers. We want to get everybody to be involved. Good night, Katrina. Sorry, you're all off. You're having a fantastic weekend? It's hump day. Yes, at this stage, any new orders for the Byron Bobs will change. I think they will change definitely. I think what we will do is make them $125, and that will cover us. I think probably if silver goes to 70, we'd be covered there. And I don't think we're too far away from 70. But if you want to order, the new orders will be $125. But you are, as I say, getting coins that are valued sort of at $9, variously $9.10 to $9.50 something at the moment, each one of them. So you get nearly $100 worth of silver in your hot little hand straight up, plus the magnificent, and I do mean magnificent 3D covers. These ones from Silver Fox, some other ones coming from Pete and Will in Pinaroo, and I believe they're going to be gold leaf tipped, coloured, so they're going to be pretty special as well. In fact, all of them have a certain unique collector quality to them, now that I think about it. Pete from Pinaroo would be the one to tell us about that sort of stuff. So I like that, because there's the Vince design with the hand painting. Then there's the same or similar design with Silver Fox, but with the two-color 3D printing. And then there is similar design, two-color printing, but this is gold leaf. I think it could be interesting. A booth and a stall at the pavilion at the Riverland Field Days with a half-page advertising was $2,000. Well, wow. I don't know. All right, I'm looking at the chat, because I actually thought tonight what I might do is just ask you if you wanted to talk to me about anything in particular. How long have I been speaking? Right on an hour. So now is probably not the time to do that. But is there, I think I've got a couple of videos tucked down here. They can wait until tomorrow night. There is one thing I do want to show you that did upset me a tad from South Australia, and I clearly didn't add the file, which isn't smart. There has been a lot of pushback regarding Charlie Kirk with police or other very senior Australians, not Australians, people around the world speaking out and applauding the death of Charlie Kirk. A South Australian police officer is now under investigation for describing Charlie Kirk's shooting as wonderful. There is also investigations and sackings, very swift sackings, may I say, in America for people that have been TikToking or Instagramming or Facebooking or twatting or whatever, their delight in Charlie's death. So, and then, of course, there's this bloke who has put out another recent video. Well, you know what that's been about. We are still wondering why the Cossacks videos of late are topless. I did see one that I think he probably prepared earlier for Mother Russia, where he's describing it as very hot in Australia at the moment. Not really. It's not something he'd do, but maybe he's out trying to catch a few rays. I've got to say, though, his framing is getting lower and lower and lower. And the next time he puts out one of these, I think I'm probably going to have to put a bra on it. Just, or some tassels or something. Because I'm honest, I don't really understand it.
And what a clustered fuck this is.
Anyway, folks, it has been one of those mixed sort of bag kind of days. There's a lot of shit going on, I suspect, overnight tonight. Trump's response to the ABC Four Corners guy. Yeah, that was great. Shut him down immediately. Who are you? John Lyons is the ABC's Four Corners reporter in Washington. and he has had his ass kicked fairly solidly. What I laughed about most was the fact that Trump let out that Albanese will be summoned shortly to go and have a meeting with him, and that he thought he might warn Albanese that this ABC was something to watch, or this bloke in particular. Albanese is in league with the ABC, President Trump. Albanese wants the ABC to ask you those sorts of questions so he can come to you and be a sycophant. They can try and keep you honest. Pardon me a minute. They always come in twos, don't they? So Albo Sleazy is going to apparently go and see Donald Trump soon. Trump's going to warn him prior to he comes on ABC. You can't trust them. And then I suspect, well, what are we going to see? Are we going to see something like what happened to the South African president, Cyril Ramaphosa, when he went there and President Trump pointed out all of the bad things that are happening? In fact, I think they watched this video.
Alliance shoot to kill Yamaza, kill the poor,
Good to kill.
the farmer, kill the poor, the farmer,
Kill the poor, the farmer.
Attention.
Bullshit. But notice the theming, the black and the red. All right? These are the dark side's colors. And you see the rhythmic moving, the rhythmic chanting. You don't have to remember a great long sentence. All you have to do is remember, kill the boar, the farmer. Kill the boar, the farmer. And literally a football stadium full of them. I don't know what's going on in South Africa, and I'm hoping to speak with some people there in the near future. I've got a mate who just doesn't want to talk about it, whether he thinks it's going to put him in some danger or what, I don't know. He's certainly never been on our side of the fence, so maybe having lived there all his life, it's just how it is. But it must be a very frightening place for people at the moment, South Africa. And we'll never worry, never fear. We've got Anthony Albanese to come help save the day, haven't we? And President Trump, who is in the UK at the moment. He's going to meet up with Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer, who has a very long and illustrious history, we've found out, suppressing pedophile cases in the UK. But he and Trump having a bit of a meeting. I think they're going to Chequers, which is the retreat for the British Prime Minister. There'll be a press conference there where an unrestrained Fleet Street press will get to ask whatever the hell they want. And Trump, I guess, will pick and choose who he answers. Same for the American press. They'll get to chew on him there too. And then I guess he'll be off to that golf club that he owns in Scotland for a round or two before he has a couple of quiet secret meetings with people, puts them in their place, and heads home. You can be absolutely guaranteed the next 48 hours is going to hold some interesting things globally, I reckon, folks. The only thing you can be absolutely guaranteed of, that the dickhead drivers on the road won't be worrying President Donald Trump in Air Force One.
You let one ant stand up to us, then they all might stand up. Those puny little ants outnumber us 100 to 1. And if they ever figure that out, there goes our way of life. It's not about food. It's about keeping those ants in line. That's why we're going back. Does anybody else want to stay? Let's ride!